Poverty. It is often an issue that is not overlooked, but also goes unnoticed sometimes within society. When looking at an international scale, more than 80% of our world's population are living in areas in which income differentials are continuing to widen, and as well as over half of our world's population, estimating at 3 billion people, are surviving on only $2.50 a day, making it difficult to afford basic human needs that we should have easy access to, such as water, food, and shelter. Now, after listening to me discuss the world's poverty rate and the money in which individuals are surviving on each day, what countries came to your mind? And don't be ashamed, a lot of people will have similar ideas. If an African or Asian country came to your mind, that's okay, because we often assume that those are the countries that are poorest in our world. When in fact, although it may be not as high in poverty levels, wealthier countries tend to actually have large poverty rates. Once again, not as high as third world countries, but still more than expected. Currently, Canada's poverty rate is increasing each year. Seems odd, doesn't it? Currently, 5 million people in Canada are living in conditions of poverty, and that's 1 in 7 people. Not only is this costing the country billions of dollars annually, but the Canadian citizens are living in very poor conditions. So who is being affected? Often the people being affected are vulnerable groups such as people with disabilities, single parents, elderly individuals, children or youth, and racialized communities. Now, not only are adults the main victims of poverty, children. Child poverty rates are rising fast in Canada, and they are often more affected under the age of 18. And within the country, there are currently 1.3 million children living in poverty, and that's 1 in 5 children living in poor conditions, meaning 17% of Canada's youth. They are standing at being accountable for a quarter of all low-income Canadians. This is denying the children the opportunity to live a normal childhood, as they are very unable to afford clothing, food, and activities such as sports and other after-school activities. So who else is being affected? Indigenous peoples are a large makeup of Canada's population, and the communities within the country, however, are experiencing the higher levels of poverty within the country. And this is due to reasons such as historical oppression, poor infrastructure on the reserve, as well as the constant discrimination the communities still continue to face in urban areas. First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples are making up a large population of the homeless in urban areas, with making up 28% to 34% of shelters in the area. So why is this happening? Well, in Canada, the main reason is behind poverty is the workforce. So with having unreliable and unsustainable employment increasing in the country, this makes it difficult for individuals to support their families financially if they can't rely on a constant guaranteed income system. So especially for single parents, when they are the only ones working for the family, and 21% of single mothers raise their children in poverty, and 7% of single fathers are currently raising their children in poverty. After listening to the ways in which poverty is largely affecting Canada as a country, what are the main ways that are really affecting the country? So, food insecurity, health, and lastly, most common is housing, can be the main issues of poverty in Canada. So I have a guest here with me, Rob Fenwick, to discuss his opinion on poverty in Canada. So hi, Rob.
Hello.
So since you're a Canadian citizen yourself, currently living in Ontario, yes?
Sure am.
So as a Canadian citizen, what are your thoughts on poverty rates in Canada? And for such a wealthy country, why are they so high?
Oh, poverty rates are, I don't know if they're high or not historically, but they're certainly, I don't know if they're getting any better either. The government's always, every time the government gets elected, a new government gets elected, they're always talking they're going to attack it and reduce it and so on, but I don't know, there's still lots of homeless people, especially in the urban areas. And it's a shameful thing. Every time you get a really, really cold night and you walk outside, picture that somebody's sleeping outside in that, and it's shocking.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely one of the main causes is homelessness in Canada for poverty. It's also creating health issues, so people can't renew their medical prescriptions and not being able to afford that. And also food insecurity is a big issue too. So
For sure.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money on healthcare, and if these people can't get the proper food and they have to survive on whatever they can afford, which is often not the best stuff, then they end up in our hospitals and they cost us tons of money because they're not healthy. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, so we seem to be running out of time, but thank you, Rob, for sharing your opinion with us and coming into the studio about this issue.
No problem, anytime.
All right, thanks, Rob. So, all right, with that, we have discussed the effects of the poverty rates in Canada, and that's really an issue in which we need to address. With being such a wealthy country, the rates should not be this high and unfortunately are still growing.